Hey everybody, this is Devin Townsend, and you are watching and or listening to Heavy Mag.
Beautiful. Devin, thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, you're more than welcome, man. Thanks for the interview.
Oh, pleasure. So you head back to Australia for a run of shows this November, mate, starting November the 8th in Perth before hitting Melbourne and Sydney and finishing in Brisbane on November the 12th. So you've done that much touring in your life, mate. Do you like, do you have a go bag ready to leave at any time, or do you sort of pack individually for each tour?
Well, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have some degree of a go bag ready at all times. In the closet in my bedroom, I've got something that you know, it's got passport, iPad, all the cables that I use for the different countries, notepad, guitar picks, um, battery backup, a couple of books that I like, and it's always there. And then I've got another bag beside it that's open. That is where I just put the clothes. But what I've done over the past couple of years is because I've been repeatedly going to countries, I leave a suitcase in every country
Ah,
full of clothes. So I don't have to travel with an extra bag. I can just show up and I've got like the only problem is if I've left something in a pocket and then I'm like, oh shit, it's in
it's one of those
Brazil or
bags.
whatever. Yeah.
So tell us, mate, what's one non-essential item that you never leave home without, like not including socks and jocks and that sort of stuff? What's one luxury item that you never leave without?
I think Socks and Jocks is a great name for something. Like, let me think. So a non-essential item. I got a little candle that's like battery powered. That's held together with like zip ties, actually, because I've used it so much. And wherever I go, I take that candle. It's stupid, but it's just like it's just I like lighting, I guess. And so if I'm in some shitty hotel and I've got my dumb little candle, I don't know, it kind of helps. But it's it's falling apart in every conceivable angle. So literally, I just have it wrapped up with three zip ties, and they're not good looking zip ties. They're like black zip ties around this thing, and I carry it in my carry on bag.
There you go. You can never have too much light, can you, brother?
That's true. Yeah.
So the press release promises a show that celebrates his legendary career. So I've got to know, mate, are
Nice.
you doing 10-hour shows per night to do that?
Well, it's I think maybe a bit less than 10 to be honest, but the thing is, I've had the good fortune of playing with some fantastic musicians throughout my career. But the group of people I've got working with me right now are the most capable of playing everything. So it's allowed me to kind of put together a set that I think is um, a, a good cross section of material. And also because I've been touring with them for this whole year and the sound person, I'm confident that it's the best that I've been able to present the material by a long shot, in my opinion. So having that is really great for me because although it's been good in the past, I believe, also there's been certain things where I'm like, man, I wish that, wish that was different, or wish that was articulated different, or maybe this player is really good at this, but not so good at that, or vice versa, or what have you. And not to be disparaging against anybody I've worked with, I've just got, like you say, a huge amount of material that typically I use different players for all of it. So what I've done with this recent one, I've just found people that I'm confident that can do all of it, right? And they had to learn how to do all of it too. Like when we first thing that I did with some of these players, they didn't know how to play the stuff, and it took them touring to be able to figure it out. But now I feel that the presentation of the material for me is like I'm excited about being able to show it to people because I'm like, this sounds fucking great, man. Like that's how I feel.
Oh. Do you agonize over set lists when you do them up though, bro? Because like you say, you got so much material, like you're never going to keep everyone happy, but you've also got to try and please a lot of people. Like, does it get frustrating?
Well,
So
no, it's I think the idea of trying to please people in general is a fool's game, you know? It's like it's not going to work. Um, but I think keeping an eye on what it is that people typically are respond to is in your best interest, and I do. But it's somewhere between what people respond to, what you're trying to present with new material, and what I want to hear. You know, and also trying to appease people that like the really old stuff or the heavy stuff. You know, like I like being able to be in a position now where I can draw from all of it, right? And I think it gives a really well-rounded overview of what I do as a player. I mean, I do a lot of shit, and I like doing a lot of shit, and that's kind of my deal.
And you're going to be having Caligula's horses special guests for all but the Perth show, mate. Like, how good are those guys? They're going to be perfect for the run.
They're really good. They're really good. I met them at some point, and I have a vague recollection of like having dinner with them or something, but I'm not so familiar with them that we're on, you know, like a social basis. But they're a fantastic, man, and I'm honored that they chose to be involved.
I don't often get a chance to talk to someone as inspiring as yourself, mate. So I hope you don't mind me asking a few of these questions. But can we go back to the start of your career, mate? Like when you debuted on Steve Vai's Sex and Religion in 1993 before hitting the road with him. Like at that stage of your life, what were you looking for out of music?
I think it's the same thing I'm looking for now. I'm just looking for ways to develop my skill set so that I can actualize the sounds in my head that are um, in line with where I'm at that point in my life. And that was the same then. I think the reason why the Steve Vai project was difficult for me as a young man was because I was chomping at the bit to do my own thing from the very beginning. As much as you know, Steve Vai is a genius and his material is intricate and beautiful and powerful. It wasn't mine, you know, and and although in hindsight, of course, I had to go through that, and of course, I had to go through everything that I went through past that point, like Wild Hearts and Strapping and Ocean Machine and all this stuff, to get to the point where I'm at now, where I'm able to know how to do what it is that I want to do. At that time, I was so impatient. You know, I'm like, come on, let me just get out. Let me get at this. Let me get at this, you know? And even though the experiences that I was having with Steve, you know, we're on tour with Aerosmith and arenas and Tonight shows and, you know, record did really well in Japan and we're doing all this sort of touring. I just was so impatient that I couldn't wait to do my own thing. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And I'm still impatient, man.
So along those lines, man, like certain frustrations with the music industry provided the catalyst for your first album of your own when you vented that anger on the album Heavy as a Really Heavy Thing. Like, do you mind me asking what those frustrations were back then and if you think they've been adequately addressed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, the frustrations were primarily rooted in my own projection, I guess. I had assumptions of what I thought other people who I've seen in positions of power or success. I had a perception of how they perceived the work, and that perception was based on my own. I was just projecting it, right? Thinking that of course people feel the same way that I do about it. For me, music is in some way it's like the form of self-help, right? You get it out of your system so that you can purge it and then move on. It's like until I'm able to write about it, it's like stuck in a way. And I guess just naively, I assumed everybody was like that. And when I moved down to LA, I just had so many interactions with people that I just thought, not only is it not that, but they're just awful. You know what I mean? And I felt like um, it felt uh, like a dark night of the soul in a way, where your connections to something are so ingrained with your perception of what it is, that when the truth reveals itself, and it is the truth, it's an industry. There's, of course, there's people that feel the same way about music as I do, of course, but the majority of people that I met back there just didn't. And I remember thinking, oh, this is like this romantic, precious, intimate thing that I want to share is just this. It's just a commodity. It's just this thing. And these are the chords we use in the summer. And we're gonna add double kick to this because that's what's popular now, and get to the chorus and all this shit. And I remember being like, oh, I just want it all to just burn. And so that's when I started making heavy stuff. And it was never intended to be successful. Like strapping was never meant to be anything. I just thought, I'll just get that out of my system. If people are telling me that, you're never going to succeed in the music industry because you use too much echo, or you're never going to succeed because you don't get to the chorus fast enough, I was like, okay, well, now I'm just going to make music that's just explosions. Like, fuck you, right? And then yeah, then the ramifications of that I've been working through ever since. So yeah.
So looking back in hindsight, bro, like how did that experience early on in your career influence you at that impressionable stage?
Well, I made a shitload of mistakes and hurt a bunch of people, and um decided that escaping reality through whatever means for a decade was the most appropriate course of action. Um but I mean, that's where I was. And this is why when people talk to me about strapping or infinity or ocean machine or any of these things, and why I did the album cover, I got naked again for the reissue of Infinity. A lot of it is because I'm not ashamed of it. You know what I mean? It's like, although I made a bunch of mistakes and I had to learn a bunch of lessons, where I'm at now is a direct result from that, from those lessons and that learning. So I've got a lot of respect for the stumbling that occurred back then, and it affected me in some very good ways as well. For example, um, I never had to do what anybody asked me. The only time that I've even attempted that was on Lightwork, just to see what it would be like to work with a producer. But I learned a lesson from that too, and to be in a position where I've had enough success to sustain myself, but not enough success to be a household name is perfect for me, because that way I can do whatever I want anytime. And I've been doing it now for 30 some odd years. So not only can I do whatever I want, but I have the skills now to do that in ways that I don't think anybody else can. When it comes to my own music, I mean, it's like, I can do things with my own music that other people can't, just because I've been through all this stuff, and I've had to be so fiercely independent for so long just to kind of keep things going, that now I'm in this really unique position in a way where, yeah, not only can I do whatever I want, but I can do whatever I want. It's like ideal, right?
Very cool. We
Yeah.
haven't got enough time to go through your whole career, mate, but you've written and performed everything from extreme metal to prog metal to poppier sort of music, mate. Like when you were younger, you had that anger that was driving you to do these things. But as you get older and more happy with yourself, I guess, like what drives you to
Yeah.
keep experimenting now?
Well, uh, ignorance, I guess, is a big part of it, because I'm a perfectionist, but it doesn't exist. And I know that. So I always try to make things perfect. And that's why I keep going, because I'm not perfect. So that's an endless source of inspiration, is if you want something to be perfect, and perfect doesn't exist, then you're always going to have shit to write about and things to get better, right? But also the nature of the process that I've been doing since day one has been, like I mentioned earlier, feels like in a sense the only way I'm able to understand where I've been is to write about it. And then once I do, I feel like I can kind of get rid of that. You know, I can kind of move on. And life just doesn't stop. It's not like you're 25 and then you have no more experiences for the rest of your life. It's every day there's something new. You know, my buddy just had a cancer surgery. I just picked him up today. And, you know, my son is now getting ready to move out of home. And my parents are older. And, you know, and my wife and I are now in our 50s. And there's a pandemic and there's, you know, there's money things and there's AI. There's all these things that every day there's something new, and how that affects us if we're doing our best, even if we're not doing our best. But how it affects me if I try to do my best is that my life changes all the time. And just by the nature of my life changing, it requires me to have some sort of um, perspective on it in order for me to remain balanced, right? And again, the way that I find that I am able to gain perspective is by writing. And so that means that there's always going to be things to write about. It may not appeal to the same people as it once did. I mean, I'd be shocked if it did. But I think there's enough people that participate in what I do that are on either a similar path, age-wise or experience-wise, or are more concerned about the intent than they are with the outcome. Meaning, as long as you're coming at it from an authentic point of view, then fill your boots, you know. However it comes out, that's what is going to be important, is whether or not you mean it. And I do. So
Now, tell me that, mate. You've done nearly 30 albums in as many years, which is a phenomenal output. But does creating new music become easier or harder the more you do you think?
that's the best part of it. I love it. I love creating new things. I even love the drama that comes from thinking that you have nothing more to say. You know, it's like, remember when I was younger, the process of making records has remained reasonably consistent. It's like this the same up and down emotional, like, oh, I love it, oh, I hate it, oh, this is amazing, oh, it sucks. So, you know, like every record is the same thing. And I would assume that anybody listening to this who's making a record has the exact same experience. It's part of the artistic temperament, right? If you don't, I'm shocked and jealous, right? But at the same time, I've also, after 30 records, now I'm more able or willing at least to accept that that's just part of it. You know, the drama, the ups and downs, the dark nights of the soul, and the elation, and the feeling of uncovering something that's golden, and then only to have it fall to shit or whatever. It's like all that is what the act of writing is. I never thought that when I was younger. I thought the act of writing was you make riffs and then you put it together, and then at the end of it you're like, you know, you got a badass song. And again, there's some people that's what they do, and that sounds amazing. But that's not how I do it. Like, how I write is that all that psychological diarrhea. It's just, that's what it is for me. And so I still participate in it in almost precisely the same way as I did in the beginning. It still tears you apart in the way that it does. It still empowers you in the way that it does. The difference now is that I'm comfortable with the fact that, oh, that's who I am and that's how I do it. So maybe when I was younger, I would impose that on people. I was going through some shit and I was like, oh, this is everybody else's problem as well as mine, because I'm an artist or whatever. But now, as you know, early 50s father and whatever, you're just like, you keep that shit to yourself and you write about it. And then when it's dinner time, you make sure you're present. You know what I mean? Like, it's all learning, man, and I'm here for it.
Cool. Now, before we let you go, mate, I've started doing 3 different Spotify playlists based on songs from artists that I speak to. So using your own songs, give me one for a playlist to get the party started, one for a playlist to save your marriage, and one for a playlist that could potentially end your marriage.
Okay, to get the party started, we could use the song Addicted from Addicted. Song to save your marriage. Call of the Void, I think, is a nice song. A song to end your marriage. I would say you could probably either use Shitstorm or Info Dump from Alien.
Beautiful. I might use both of them, mate, since they're both good songs. All right, Devin. Well, thanks very much for your time today, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. The tour kicks off on November the 8th in Australia in Perth. So there's only a select few shows, mate. So get yourself some tickets before they all go.
Thank you so much for the support, brother, and I'll see you there.